No Doubter Nation, the curtain has officially fallen on the 2022 NCAA college baseball season. College World Series has come to a close, and the Ole Miss Rebels have taken home their first ever College World Series title in their seventh try in the College World Series. Sixth try, excuse me. But yeah, Hotty Toddy, gosh almighty, what a what a College World Series. Boom, it caught both you and I think off guard a little bit. We were very confident with Oklahoma, but and liking them to take it to a full 3 games here. But the Rebels came strong out of the gate, and they got this done in 2 games.
They sure did. It's we put our eggs in the Oklahoma baskets, but it just goes to show that these teams, they have the drive. It's a different world. It's kind of like MLB, where anything can happen in a 3-game series. Any team can beat any other team on any given day. But Ole Miss has just proven they had the talent from the very beginning, and it was
took a while for it all to come together.
It sure did. But now, yeah, we're gonna just talk about it, celebrate it. We did it. We covered college baseball this time around.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you allow me here with this programming to be able to take kind of ownership of the sport here and covering it here. It's been a pleasure doing this with you over the past season here. Started back in February. The end of June is here. Season has come and gone. I had a ton of fun doing it. I'll even for myself. I mean, it's just such a long season that we get kind of towards the end of the regular season. I was kind of feeling a bit burned out on college baseball. I was like, man, I'm so ready for postseason play to start here. I'm ready for Omaha to come around, and but sticking through it, persevering, pushing on through, it was all worth it here. Obviously, coming to see a fantastic close to the season like we did here with the Rebels. But yeah, before we jump more into that, it's been a minute since we've done this, but boom, we're going to do it. We're going to bring back a segment that was kind of part of some of the original episodes, and as we've shifted our focus and content a little bit over time, has become less of a focus here. But we're celebrating the close of another great college baseball season, and we thought we'd go ahead and bring and do it for this show. So tell our audience what we are going to do.
That's right. It's a special edition. We're celebrating the end of college baseball, and that means pour and score, people. That's right. Trav and I are going to indulge in some adult beverages because when you're watching baseball, postseason baseball especially, it's always good to have your favorite poison of choice in hand. Drink it responsibly. So we got our poisons of choice because whenever you pour, you score. So I'm going to put it right back on you, to you unlawfully. What are you drinking this evening?
So I believe this was kind of common as we were doing some of the previous pour and score segments here, that I'm opening up my palate to wine a bit more. Nice. And it's and with the summer here, I'm doing that especially with white wine. So I'm finishing off a bottle here of Chardonnay. This is a 2019 Substance Washington State Chardonnay. So to see the label here, it looks almost something off the periodic table of the elements. So partaking in the elements here this evening of Chardonnay. Chardonnay, just a great all around type of white wine. I liken it to it's like the cab, like the Cabernet of all white wines. It just goes well with about any situation, any type of food you're having, whether you're having food with it or not.
There you go. We've had many different alcoholic beverages on the show. We've had cocktails, wine, beer, bourbon. It's just whatever you feel like drinking at the time. And once again, T-Bone going for the finer things in life.
Yeah, that's a good Chardonnay. It's I'd say it's on the drier side, not super sweet. Just goes down really easy. It's a good has a good note in the head to it. Just as that, like an all-around great white wine that you can have with just about anything, and it's so relaxing, it's so refreshing, so that you can sip on, but this has a lot of substance and depth to it. Yeah, I don't know how I'm rating a wine. Rating wines is more difficult for me because
Yeah.
I just don't have the experience with it like I do beers and really on maybe the same type of conviction to say, hey, this is an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10.
No.
But I'll say, this is a good 8.5 out of 10. I think
There you
that's
go.
gives me a good baseline of good stuff to look for in a white wine.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I'll take that any day of the week. Go ahead and give us the name of that one more time.
Yes, sir. This is the Substance Washington State Chardonnay 2019. As the label says here on the back, quality of being important, valid, and significant. Substance Chardonnay, Columbia Valley 2019. Charles Smith winemaker. Produced and bottled by Wines of Substance, Mattawa, Washington, USA.
There you go, Washington State, the home of the majority of hops in the United States, and a home to a good wine, apparently. So, there you go, all the way from the Northwest. Um, I have a beer this evening, and this is a special beer. This is a beer that I've had on draft several times. I've had this beer. It's from the Austin, Texas area. Shout out to all the people in Austin, Texas this evening. I've had this on draft several times at Alamo Draft Houses, where I mainly had it. But this brewery just recently started canning their beers. So this is a very recent phenomenon. Happened probably within the last month or two. So for the first time, people are going to be able to enjoy this beer from Total Wine, Specs, or wherever. So presenting one of the first few cans, well, within a month or two. I don't know. It's not the first ones they've done, but presenting a rock solid West Coast IPA straight out of Austin, Texas, 512 IPA. That's repping the 512, baby. That's right. Check it out. They have moved on up into the world. This is a 100% craft beer. We almost exclusively do craft beer on the show, and this is 100% independent. Look at that. They even got the logo on it. Their website doesn't offer a whole lot on it, but it is a West Coast IPA, 7% alcohol by volume. They're up on their website. It just says, yes, finally, you can get our classic West Coast style IPA in 12-ounce cans, good for any time and anywhere. There you go. I've always enjoyed this, and I've always drank from it every chance I can get. Just, again, mostly just in draft style. So it's 7% alcohol by volume. I'm trying to get the bitterness on it, not finding it. Well, it's a 65 bitterness. So right off the bat, it is a rock solid IPA just by the specs. I mean, 7.2 is no joke, and 65 IBUs is no joke. So without further ado, I got my Texas Tech glass because it's college, people. We have to represent.
I got mine as well. So
there you go, man.
Yes, properly shown there in front of the camera.
Yes, the 512 back in the 512. Julie repping the 512. Let's do it. Yeah, you get it. I don't know where you can get it, Julie, but I'm sure you can look it around. But it is canned. Yeah, West Coast. I'm going back to what I love, people, and what I love is West Coast IPAs. So this is gonna be fun. I've ventured out a few times, but this is in my wheelhouse. This is our wheelhouse, Travis. It's our favorite kind of beer. So.
Yes, we are resident hopheads here, no doubter.
Mm-hmm. A lot ahead. I mean, I'm just trying to expedite the process here. All right. So right off the bat, not very translucent. This right here, this color right here is stereotypical IPA.
Yeah, it's the real IPA, the West Coast IPA.
Seriously,
not the hazy nonsense that the Northeast has.
Oh yeah,
though I love New England style IPAs.
This is what we love. I mean, you just smell it. Like this is the quintessential West Coast IPA. So color's good, nose is very strong. So right off the bat, I'm gonna go ahead and just dive right on into it. That thing is bitter. That thing is bitter right there. Thank you, Helen. He sure would. Dad would love trying the 512, representing the 512. Thanks for joining in, everybody. But yeah, just right off the bat, the hops are just very strong. I mean, it attacks you, but I love it. That's why I love bitter beers, because you drink it and it boom, it punches you in the face. And so this is probably not a gateway IPA. You probably want to work your way up to this, but if you consider yourself a fan of IPAs, West Coast, you cannot go wrong with this. This is unapologetic West Coast. It's not light. I mean, the hops are there, and it's just so bitter. I'm gonna get another. Mm. Mm. You feel it. I mean, the aftertaste, I wish there was a little more there, but it's still solid. The hops, the bitterness, it's just rock solid. So as far as a rating, it's definitely getting an 8. Man, I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 8.5. Begrudgingly, it's almost 9, but 512 IPA straight out of the heart of Austin, Texas. You can get it canned. I mean, I think that's rock solid. I mean, borderline 9. So there you go. Beer, wine. We're all good to go. Cheers, man. Texas Tech, baby. All right. Now we're gonna have ourselves a party, and of course, we want to end this segment as always by reminding our audience to please drink responsibly. So.
Absolutely, the only way to do so.
Yes.
Yeah. So back to the task at hand, the Ole Miss Rebels, who take home their first College World Series title in their 6th appearance in the College World Series, their first since 2014, and it comes in head coach Mike Bianco's 22nd season. A team that, as we've talked about, was at this point in time, almost 2 months ago, it looked like their season was just dead in the water. Like the month of April rolled around and the wheels completely came off. It was just
they fell out of the top 25.
Yeah, series. A team that started in the top 5 for the year after a great non-conference performance for some good teams. Gets into SEC play and the wheels just completely come off in April. Series loss after series loss in SEC play, dropping midweek games. It was ugly baseball being played up in Oxford, Mississippi at that period of time. They were 7-14 in SEC play, basically around like a 500 or so club heading into the month of May. Ole Miss is one of those teams that we were looking at. They were towards the bottom few teams, and within the SEC 14-team league, only the top 12 teams get into the SEC tournament in Hoover, and so that completely changed. That just changed like what the look of like, hey, what do we even like expect out of Ole Miss to finish here? It's like, hey, can these guys just even squeak in here in Hoover and possibly try to do something? But things completely turned around for Ole Miss, excuse me. We'll talk about the Sooners here in a second. Things completely turned around for the Rebels and Ole Miss in the month of May. Rattled off multiple streaking together wins. They're getting these SEC series victories there. I believe they finished with 13 or 14 SEC wins by the end of conference play. They're heading into Hoover. Although they did drop that final series, regular season series, to A&M ultimately, did get a game out of it, but they're still safely in Hoover to be able to play the SEC tournament. But they went 0-1 to start the tournament, and so where they were set in the bracket, that's single elimination. So that loss sent them home, and they were going into that selection show ultimately like nobody expected them to get into the tournament this year. However, they end up being the 64th team in the NCAA tournament.
64.
Yeah. Then had to go on the road to play regionals down in Coral Gables with Miami hosting. They knocked Miami out of their own regional. Ole Miss ends up winning that one over Arizona. And they go on the road and they outright sweep in 2 games, Southern Miss in the Supers, and then they make their run all the way through the bracket to get to the championship series, and then end up taking those 2 games. So
Yeah.
remarkable.
Remarkable for Ole Miss. We've been keeping up, and I mean, I don't want to rehash what we said before the series, but I mainly want to focus on the series itself. It was 2 games. It's the best 2 out of 3. And in that first game, which was on a Saturday night, it's Ole Miss came out hot. By the third inning, they were up 4-zip. And then Jack Dougherty, that guy pitching 5 innings, giving up 2 runs. I mean, he did quite good. I mean, keeping them at bay. And Oklahoma tried to come back in the 6th, got it to 4-2, but then Ole Miss just blows past them. They ended up winning 10-3. They did it with 3 pitchers, 5, 2, and 2, respectively, for all 3 of those pitchers. And Oklahoma, man, they had to go to their bullpen, and it was just nasty. Their starter went 6 and a third, gave up 3, not too shabby. But then they brought in Chaz Martinez, and he just gives up 4 in 1.1 innings. And it just, I guess their bullpen just didn't show up. It's the story of the game, really the story of the series. It's, you got to have all 3.
Yeah, the bullpen was pretty solid for Oklahoma throughout the regular season. Then in the postseason to that point, I mean, yeah, especially like the bullpen matched what the starting pitching was bringing. Good evening, Don. Matched what the starting pitching was bringing for the Sooners. Really, when we look at late April throughout over the next couple of months in the postseason, but then you get to the finals and it just completely falls apart. And then you have then the best of, and then you have Ole Miss's pitching that just completely shuts down Oklahoma. They're not letting they're not letting runners get in motion, which was a lot of Oklahoma's game. Guys aren't getting on base. And it takes Oklahoma's game plan seemingly completely out of the equation. But you had the absolute best of what Ole Miss baseball is, which is power bats, guys that get the ball out there onto the outfield or out of the park for that matter. Omaha this year was playing as an offensive park there. Charles Schwab Field, the Chuck Box, historically has kind of been a very cavernous stadium compared to the old Rosenblatt Field. But Ole Miss just absolutely turned it on for sure. And their pitching was phenomenal. Dylan DeLucia earning the most outstanding player this year in the College World Series.
Absolutely. And they did all of this without Tywone Malone. I guess he had to go into football practice. So, I mean, they could have used a clutch bomb. Well, they could have used it. Well, the real story is they went without it, because that first game they won 10-3, had 16 hits. So the bats were hot and heavy. So we come on into Sunday, and this is the one that I was actually able to catch a little bit. I was watching it with Don the other day. And this one was more of a pitching duel. Through 5 innings, it's zip. But then the bottom of the 6th, Oklahoma comes up 1-zip. So you think, oh man, actually reverse that. Ole Miss goes up 1 in the bottom of the 6th, and then in the top of the 7th, Oklahoma's up 2-1. So you figure, yes, this is the moment where Oklahoma takes the middle game and then they forces a rubber game. But no, in the bottom of the 8th, Ole Miss not only ties the game 2 apiece, but they blow past and they end up scoring 3 runs in that inning. They have a 4-2 lead, and Oklahoma at that point had one more chance in the top of the 9th, and they blew it. Yeah. I mean, pitching wise, Cade Horton went 7 in a third inning and gave up 2 runs for the Sooners. So when it comes to, I mean, he struck out 13 in 7 innings and only gave up 2 runs. So that was more of a case where your starter does the job. I mean, that's a quality start. 13 strikeouts. I mean, how much more do you want? I mean, he threw in 107 pitches. Oklahoma's offense just straight up didn't show up. And it's one problem one day, another problem the next.
Yeah. I think one of the things you can certainly say came down to it this year was Oklahoma having a very talented roster and clubhouse, albeit a very young group of guys. A lot of freshmen, sophomore pieces that were part of the effort this year. While Ole Miss, very veteran heavy team. You know, we're talking about guys like Tim Elko and multiple others. After Ole Miss's loss in the Super Regionals last year at Arizona down the Tucson Super Regional, a lot of guys that had great cases for moving on to Major League Baseball and their pro career. Moving on to different organizations there, but collectively came together and thought that they truly had something to prove. I mean, they weren't ranked a top 5 team heading into the year for no reason. But this was what you just saw was, I believe, ultimately a veteran group of guys that understood how to face adversity, that they had seen the lowest of lows. I mean, you're talking about guys, that had their season canceled in the middle of COVID. They absolutely have just a disastrous start to their conference play that forces them to come back and spark things up. Everything they were able to go as high as they did because they had experienced as low as they did as well too, and they were just so focused and locked in to being a complete team this year in Omaha. So yeah, it's a great story in terms of look at the guys that have just been there forever up in Oxford, who would come into that program later on, and decided that they were going to make a difference, that they were going to be the reason ultimately why this Rebels program got their first College World Series title. So yeah, just a beautiful part of this sport here, and just how ever expanding the opportunities are for new teams to get in here and to be a part of the action. We've seen our Red Raiders make it into, they make it to Omaha for the first time 8 years ago. They've had several appearances since. You have Mississippi State last year that gets their first ever title in program history. They get their first ever title in any sport for Mississippi State. You've got the Rebels this year of Ole Miss just up the road in Oxford that get their first title. I mean, it's a beautiful evolution of this game of college baseball. It was once a very West Coast kind of heavy sport. Like Omaha was basically where the kind of like the yearly summer break destination for all these schools throughout California and places like Arizona State, Arizona, Texas, but has very much expanded further east and is bringing more new teams into the fold. And so I'm as ever optimistic about this game as I could be. If I could pull up this tweet here that has the numbers for the viewership this year. So first off here for Ole Miss and OU, I think like total viewership came out to 1.59 million people that tuned in for both games of the College World Series this year. And then also giving a shout out as well, essentially kind of like to the sister sport here of softball, that the Women's College World Series for softball drew 1.58 million viewers between the two games, so the OU and Texas championship match in the Women's College World Series.
Very impressive.
So yeah, these are games that are on the rise for sure in popularity and people giving the sport a shot, which is really cool to see.
That is really interesting. So on the rise for sure, people tuning into America's Pastime. Our Patreon producer Don Hale poses a very interesting question indeed. Of all the players in the College World Series, who do you think will be drafted by the Texas Rangers? So this is limited to the College World Series itself. If it were not, I would say that they would want to pick up Ben Joyce of the University of Tennessee. Why? Because that guy threw 105.5 miles an hour earlier this year. So he's a volunteer fireman, and he he has one heck of an arm. So someone's going to pick him up. But the question that is posed is the College World Series. So Trav, I'm putting you on the spot. Standout players, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I mean, who do you think is gonna be someone that a team like your Texas Rangers are going to be desperate to snatch?
Oh man, I just gotta say, man, if Dylan, I can't remember, is Dylan DeLucia? What year is he? Let me look this up. Dylan DeLucia is I believe Dylan DeLucia is a senior or a junior, or maybe even a grad student this year. So he was a junior this year. So I believe he's eligible for the draft at this point now. Man, I feel like Dylan DeLucia's he's got to go somewhere. He's got to be he's got to be a hot commodity there. Yeah. As we're talking about, I feel like as we're talking about the draft now, which is less than a month away at this point, my mind still hasn't fully just shifted there to that point yet, and really evaluating the whole field and the possibilities, and knowing where like draft orders and everything is right now. So I don't know where the Rangers would possibly go with this. I hope they look at more pitching. I think they continue to build around what you have going with Jack Leiter there. I mean, I feel like it would just do the Rangers so well to become especially the way the new ballpark plays out there, which is shown to be a very cavernous place, and somewhere that, you could really take advantage of it being a pitcher's park. Like really build a pitching heavy program with the Rangers there. So I would hope that they're looking at taking a look at strong pitching performances here between the CWS and the rest of the NCAA tournament.
Yes, get Ben Joyce, get that fast arm. Of course, you'll probably inherit a Tommy John at some point, because that guy's just throwing absolute gas. But hey, it is a gamble, as every draft is. But yeah, hopefully you get that. I mean, talk about the Golden Spike winner, the Hispanic Titanic. I mean, that guy's only a freshman, Ivan Melendez of the Longhorns. But man, if that guy can just maintain production, he's gonna be like a first-round draft pick. I swear. And that guy is just jacked, lads, like it's nobody's business. You gotta wonder if eventually, because Jace Young, Texas Tech, does he have one more year?
I think he's off to the pros.
You think he's done? He's done.
Yes, I think his college career is done. I think it's time for him to move into a farm system somewhere and start developing there. I think that's where his time will best be used. Yes, I agree with you, Don. Pitching, and more pitching. There's no excuse for the Rangers not to build around that.
Yes, build around and draft people from Cuba, guys. Expand it. The foreign market is where it's at. The DR, the Cubans. I mean, you get some good talent down there. But only one can hope. But let's turn our attention to the new top 25, and of course,
yes,
I mean they put Ole Miss at number 1.
Yep,
and Oklahoma
the final
number
top
2.
25 here of the year until next year's preseason rankings comes out. So all the baseball publications go into focus on obviously the draft, and then once the fall comes around, fall ball and recruiting and all that. But yeah, D1 puts out their final top 25 of the year. Ole Miss finishes number 1 in this. They were not even in their previous ranking, which was just before regional started. They were not even ranked. So from not ranked all the way up to number 1. How quickly things can change in college baseball.
Exactly.
Oklahoma Sooners, the runner-up in this year's CWS, they continued their climb that really got going at the end of the season, moving up from number 9 previously up to number 2 in the country. Texas A&M moves up a couple spots from number 5 to number 3. Arkansas makes a major jump up from their finishing in the semifinals this year of the CWS. from number 23 all the way up to number 4 in the country.
Wow.
Stanford, Stanford was one of the first couple teams to leave the CWS this year. However, they are going to finish number 5 in the country. Number 2, let's say, dropped slightly from number 2, where they were previously heading into the postseason. Notre Dame makes a significant jump up from number 17 up to number 6. Auburn, another significant jump up from number 25 to number 7. In Texas, the very first team to leave Omaha this year makes the significant jump up from 16 all the way up to number 8. So finishing right in line with their finish in the College World Series this year. And then the team, the best team ultimately not to make Omaha get here. Obviously, we're talking about the Tennessee Volunteers. It drops from number 1 down to number 9. But I think this is a rightful place in the rankings here. I mean, this just talent-wise, everything on paper, ultimately even how the team played with some of their flaws in super regionals compared to Notre Dame. I still am confident that was the best team that did not make Omaha this year for sure. Absolutely. And they're probably, with the amount of talent that they're going to return next year, they have a very good chance of being the number 1 team heading into next season.
Oh yeah.
Oregon State, they make the drop from number 3 down to the number 10 team. Virginia Tech drop from number 4 down to number 11. Ole Miss makes the drop from number 8 down to number 12. And
Louisville.
Louisville, excuse me. Yes. They dropped from 8 down to number 12. And East Carolina, they dropped from number 10 down to 13. I am going to actually, let me keep going here. North Carolina drops from 11 to 14. Southern Miss stays there at 15. Connecticut took it all the way to the Super Regional Finals versus Stanford. They were not ranked heading into the postseason. However, they'll finish the year as the number 16 best team in the country. I am. This is my first disagreement I'm going to have to this point right here. I just wasn't super impressed with Louisville. I think you saw much more of a return to the Louisville brand of baseball, which is very high-powered offense, pretty good pitching, all that. Played Texas A&M very close in those games, but Connecticut really impressed me a considerable bit more, and I think was the more complete team that really gave Stanford a run for its money there in the Super Regionals. I would flip Connecticut and Louisville. I think Connecticut should be the number 12 team there. They just impressed me a lot more. UConn did. Oklahoma State dropped from number 6 down to number 17, being a national seed in regionals, however, losing to Arkansas ultimately at home. They're in the regional final. Maryland drops from number 12 down to number 18. Texas State drops from number 13 down to number 19. This is one that I was very surprised to see here, that Miami, gets knocked out of their own regional. Oklahoma State had the same thing happen to them, but I just was not impressed. Miami just did not have a really impressive end to the season whatsoever. From their final series of the last month and a half into the ACC tournament, they just kind of were sleepwalking a bit. And I think benefited from just certain nuances of their schedule, how that fell together. So I wasn't super, like I said, not super impressed. I think I don't understand why Miami didn't fall all the way out of the top 25, to be frank with you. Florida drops from number 18 down to number 21. UCLA drops from number 19 down to number 22. TCU drops one spot from 22 to 23. Our Texas Tech Red Raiders remain right where they started heading into the postseason at number 24. And then the LSU Tigers, previously unranked heading into the postseason, finishes the 25th best team in the country, ultimately going down to the finals of the Southern Miss regional there, almost advanced on at that point. The teams that dropped out of the top 25, the Gonzaga Bulldogs from number 14 all the way out, the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos from number 20 all the way out, and then the Georgia Southern Eagles, which Texas Tech knocked them out of their own regional all the way out from previously the number 21 team in the country. And so that's those are the final rankings this year.
There you go.
For college baseball. Obviously, when it comes around to early next year, heading into February and the preseason top 25, that's going to be very dependent on what
Transfers.
yeah, going to be very
Yeah.
dependent on guys that ultimately graduate, guys that do take offers from the draft and ultimately sign and leave. The recruiting coming in, college baseball, you have large recruiting classes. Some of those guys will choose not to sign with their programs and go straight to the pros. Like you said, transfers, we're going to deal with those. Texas Tech right now has one of like the smallest amount of transfers compared to the rest of the conference, and some teams like Texas and Oklahoma State that are really dealing with some serious numbers of players transferring out right now. And then the programs like Baylor and Kansas State, which are in rebuilding mode right now, also dealing with a lot of transfers. But Tech really only has a handful of them. The two names of which I recognize the most so far being Shea Hardis, one of the bullpen guys, who I believe is committed to K-State now. Trevor Conley, the brother of Cal Conley, is in the transfer portal as well.
Interesting.
There, several other guys who I just names I did not recognize. Really did not get starts or really any sort of work on the depth chart this year. Obviously, looking for playing elsewhere. It's the sport of college baseball. 11.7 scholarships. That essentially means that only 25, only like a quarter to a third of your team is getting is getting funding for their education as a college baseball player at one time. We've talked before about the volunteer unpaid assistant in there. Baseball deals with its limitations as a team, and those limitations of scholarship wise, especially contribute to a lot of the pitching issues the teams have, and being able to develop guys that way to have good depth there. But they'll all be dependent on all those factors together. When we look, the D1 guys, they always do one of their podcasts talking about the top 25, the rhyme and the reason behind what they put in there, both by what the roster ultimately stacks up to be, and then what they observed as well in fall ball. A lot of those guys from D1, they travel around to different places. They get a look at different teams during fall ball. So those things will all come into the fray when it comes to determining what next year's top 25 is.
Exactly. Just looking at this season as a whole, disappointed about Mississippi State. They won last year, and you would expect them to make a good showing. And very beginning of the season, they were out without a trace. I'm also disappointed in Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a team that they're a solid program, and I think they massively underperformed this year. So I would look for a team of that caliber, with that coaching staff and the facilities they have to. I don't know if their coach is in the hot seat. I wonder if they gotta really take a serious look, and they need to do better next year, because they need to establish themselves as a perennial powerhouse. Arkansas is paving the way. I mean, it's just this team is really starting to show. Stanford's really starting to show. They're starting to establish themselves. Tennessee obviously is probably going to be number one, and can they actually make it to the World Series this time around? If the gang all stays together. Gotta love the mid-majors representing East Carolina. We both picked them to make the World Series, and they almost did. So we almost were saved there. Texas State, a great year for them to really build off of. Same goes for Southern Miss. I mean, way to come out of nowhere and just, at one point they were probably I think they were in the top 5 at one point during the regular season, and it's just they really outstanding year for them. I love me some mid majors, natural underdogs. The story, what a year for Texas A&M too. This is a year that they need to be proud of themselves. I made it all the way to the World Series, and they probably could have made it all the way. But Arkansas, those pesky Arkansas Razorbacks, knock them out. And so I'm impressed. I was rooting for them all year. While I was covering the SEC, and just selfishly, I just wanted to make them in because represented Texas school. But good for you guys. Underwhelming for Texas. Of course, when you're pre-ranked number one, it's obviously going to be overwhelming. But and then Texas Tech, obviously, it's a bummer for them, but it sounds like the gang, the band's getting back together,
Yes,
and
have a lot of returning talent next year. Obviously, some guys you're going to have to replace. I think I saw they landed a commit. They landed a transfer commit actually today from Wofford, an outfielder who has like a 363 batting average on the past year. So a good power bat out there in that part of the lineup, which would be really good.
Nice.
So yeah, a lot of returning talent. I think there's good pieces that they're going to have coming in with the incoming class. They'll work transfers pretty well too. So I think certainly it's not out of the question to look at Texas Tech as a top 10 or top 5 team heading into next season.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Well, it was good. It was unpredictable.
Very unpredictable. Just one of the wildest, I think one of the if not the wildest college baseball season since I started watching the sport actively almost a decade ago. And so, obviously I have a very short time frame of my scope of history here within the sport. But I was thoroughly entertained from beginning to end. There were just so many compelling storylines and nuances here of how you evaluated and judged the sport this year. It was always pretty. The arguments about RPI and then strength of schedule, how you factored that into hosting and seating, and ultimately getting selected into the field this year for Omaha. And then, yeah, I think that was the big one. And then just bubble teams and all that stuff. But ultimately, I mean, we'll keep playing this game year after year, and presumably keep figuring out how to make this better.
Yeah, man. It was fun. It was a good ride. There is a lot of talent there. It's exciting. I mean, a lot of favorite moments of the year. I mean, selfishly, it's Texas Tech when they face Texas in Lubbock. The walk-off steal from home, and then the walk-off grand slam from Kurt Wilson. I know you and I were kind of joking around about making the trek up there, but I'm kicking ourselves because if we did, we would have seen the walk-off grand slam. Man.
Oh well, we'll get up there next year.
Yes. We always say next year, and then it never happens. But let's make it actually happen.
Yes,
for once.
I will hold you to that.
Yes, exactly.
Once the schedule comes out, we'll figure out what looks good and get out there.
Exactly, and then of course another favorite moment. Obviously, Ben Joyce throwing 105. That was epic. It helps place the sport on the map. You have talented individuals who are at the collegiate level who can. I mean, you can pick that guy up, and he can pitch in the majors right now. I mean, yeah. I mean, they might light him up, but he can throw 105 if he really tries. So, I'm pretty confident about that. But anyway, and then the horns down herd around the world. I remember that. Texas State beating Texas, the most disrespectful horns down I've ever seen in my life, and I loved every second of it.
They threw their ace out there in a midweek game because they wanted their best shot at beating Texas. And
yes.
they made it happen.
Oh, that was so awesome. It was just, it was the best. But it's just moments like that, they happen in the collegiate level. The composite bats, the bat flips, the disrespect. It's all there, guys. So
it all is.
And so, I mean, any last words for you on the season? Any things that stood out, or just disappointments, or things that you remember?
All I could say is bring on 2023.
There you go. Yep.
Fall ball will be here before we know it. So it'll be fun to see the draft come up next month and how that affects rosters for next year. So I'm already thinking ahead to next season. That's where my mind's at.
There you go. We can't get here fast enough. We just gotta wait till next February. So a long ways away, but MLB will keep us. It will tide us over. The professionals playing. So that's what we will continue to cover for the rest of the year. So thank y'all so much for joining us. College baseball was a blast. Continue to join us. MLB action. We continue to have you covered the whole way through. So subscribe to No Doubter so you don't miss out on those episodes once a week, just weekly updates. We're going to be doing a whole lot more porn scores moving forward because why not? I mean, we have to. We took a little break because we want to keep it special, but let's just, I mean, we're going to be hitting it up a lot more. So you're going to want to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see the color of what we're drinking as we describe it. The visual effect really does add to it. So you just look up No Doubter Podcast. The link's in the description below. See our beautiful faces as we entertain you. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed the show. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at No Doubter Pod. You can follow me at Boomblasted21 on Twitter. Travis Lawfully at Travis Lawfully. And if you've been watching us for a while, or if you just want to help us out, please consider joining our Patreon today. $2, $5, $10, whatever you want to give. It really does help us out. It helps us recoup our costs. Shout out to Tad Bostic, longest standing patron, and Patreon producer Don Hale. You two made this show possible, and we really appreciate it. You guys immensely much. Lastly, merch store, guys. Mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, baseball shirts, phone cases, whatever you want. Stuff for the whole family. It's all there. All in the description below. Check out those links. Reach out to us. Comment on our shows. Thank y'all so much for commenting. For all those who did. Makes the show fun. T-Bone, last college baseball episode. Let's do a proper send-off.
Absolutely, my friend. We've had a fantastic time over these last several months, starting back in February, started back in the cold winter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
bottoms up,
doing it right way.
Yes,
Had started back in February, the middle of the cold winter. We're all the way here in summer now. Season's over, but we saw baseball. We just saw. This is the beautiful thing about college baseball. We saw really just a pure spirit of the game of baseball on display, as we do every single year. And it is guys truly giving it their all. Guys that are living the No Doubter way of batting 400 and always swinging for the fences. And we believe that these college athletes can do it like this. You can also do it as well, too, in everything that you do in your life. We believe in y'all.